Good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, the breaking news. One of President Trump's most trusted confidants, his former communications director, Hope Hicks, is now cooperating with House Democrats. Hicks agreeing to turn over documents to the House Judiciary Committee. Now, Hicks is very important, right? She was at the president's side through the campaign and at the White House until she left a year ago, and she didn't leave as persona non grata. Since then, she's accompanied President Trump to rallies. She is still close to the president. Hicks is just one of 81 family, friends, business associates, entities of Trump's that received letters from the powerful chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, the committee with the power to lead impeachment proceedings. So far, only 8 people have agreed to cooperate. Trump's White House is not on the list of cooperators. The White House reportedly ignoring more than a dozen requests for documents from the committees. And yet today, the president, for the first time, publicly said this.
Does the public have a right to see the Mueller report? I don't mind. I mean, frankly, I told the House, if you want, let them see it. Let it come out. Let people see it.
Okay, so when it comes to the Mueller report, he's now saying let the people see it, which of course sounds good and sounds transparent. The problem is that the president showed his true colors on this issue earlier this week when he tweeted, quote, on the recent non-binding vote, 420-0 in Congress about releasing the Mueller report, I told leadership to let all Republicans vote for transparency. Makes us all look good and doesn't matter. Play along with the game. Play along with the game, because actions speak louder than the president's words today saying let him see it. Sources tell CNN White House lawyers expect to see Mueller's Russia findings before Congress and the public so that they can claim executive privilege and prevent people from seeing anything Trump doesn't want us to see. That is a far cry from transparency. Pamela Brown is out front live outside the White House tonight. And Pamela, the president wants to say he's fine with everybody seeing the Mueller report, but that is a long way from the reality of actually having it released.
It certainly is, Erin. The president is changing his tune today. He is now saying the Mueller report should be released to the public compared to before when he deferred to the attorney general to make the call. But the president saying this, as you point out, Erin, is a far cry from it actually happening. The president wants to send a message, it seems, that he has nothing to hide, similar to the idea he wanted to sit down with Mueller and be interviewed, which, as we know, never actually happened. So the question is, does the president's pledge put pressure on the AG, the Attorney General, to release a report in full, since the president is his boss? From a practical standpoint, Aaron, he probably couldn't because of potential classified information and grand jury information in the report, but he does have wide discretion to share other information, and sources tell me the White House wants to review whatever he gives to Congress beforehand so they can assert executive privilege if need be. That seems counter to this idea of the president saying today of releasing the full report. Now, speaking of transparency, Aaron, the White House is actively working to respond to the House Judiciary Committee after missing a deadline to respond. A White House official telling me tonight the response will be comprehensive and thorough in responding to the committee's requests. But, Aaron, that doesn't necessarily mean the White House will comply with the requests. Clearly, the White House is working on its own timetable here. Aaron.
All right, Pamela, thank you very much. From the White House, and now Democratic Congressman from California, Eric Swalwell, who sits on the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. So what's your thought? You know, the president today seems to be singing a different tune and says, oh, let everyone see the Mueller report. Do you believe him?
Well, good evening, Aaron. And also, I just have to say, Nowruz Mubarak, which is Happy New Year to the Persian community and Muslim community in my district and across the country. But I don't believe him because he has obstructed every step along the way. If the Mueller team has a cable package, they will have seen him obstruct on cable news nightly, almost. There's no exception to who could be so dumb that they would tell Lester Holt that they obstructed justice by firing James Comey. I also don't believe him because he won't sit down, even though he's been given the questions that investigators want to ask with the Mueller team, while others have gone under oath. And I don't believe him because he has put in place 2 people to be Attorney General who auditioned for the job by saying that they don't believe in the legitimacy of the Mueller investigation. But, Aaron, he's outnumbered. There's a majority in the House of Representatives that will ask for this report, and there's precedents in the judiciary that will require him to turn it over.
Okay, so you believe we'll get it, although it is obviously a fair point, right? Remember, he said, how many times did we play him saying, I want to sit down with Mueller? Okay, well, he never did. Okay, CNN has confirmed that Hicks, the former White House communications director, and as you know, a Trump insider, confidant, right? She plans to comply with your Judiciary Committee's request for documents related to the probe into President Trump. Now, among the many reasons she's important, it's not just that she's a confidant and close to him and was with him by his side at all times during the campaign and of course, in the White House. One of those times is Air Force One, right? When the president dictated that initial statement about Don Jr.'s meeting at Trump Tower, which was false, right? It was about dirt on Hillary Clinton, and the statement came out that it was about adoptions. How important do you think Hicks could be?
Critically important, and she's seen things, Aaron. I was a part of the interview team that interviewed her in front of the House Intelligence Committee, and during my questioning with her is when she acknowledged that she had told lies on behalf of Donald Trump before. Now, when I pressed her as to what those lies were, she refused to answer. She also refused to answer whether she told lies for Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and others who she worked for.
So when they said, oh, she just meant white lies and harmless things, and this was all taken out of context, because I believe that was kind of the pushback that we got at the time. Your impression was, no, that is not taking it out of context. It wasn't just little white lies.
Well, my impression was, okay, well, tell me the lies that you told and the people that asked you to tell them. And she said dozens of times, I refuse to answer, I refuse to answer. We were in the minority then, and the Republicans refused themselves to have her answer. We're not in that position anymore, so we can get the answers from her. She actually, in what she was willing to talk about, was quite cooperative. Her memory is very deep and extensive, and I think if she has a subpoena hanging over her, I think we can find out a lot about this candidate, these businesses, the transition, and the administration.
So you've said there are indictments waiting for this president, and you're now, I understand, right, working on legislation that would basically extend the criminal statute of limitations for sitting presidents, so that, essentially, Department of Justice policy, right, is you don't indict a sitting president, he gets reelected, he could be outside the statute of limitations by the time he leaves office. You want to remedy that. You could get it through the House, presumably. Democrats control it. Is there any chance the Senate would support that?
They should, if they care about the rule of law. Aaron, the President of the United States is individual one in an indictment that someone else is already going to jail for. I do not see how he gets out of himself being indicted if the statute of limitations doesn't run. What we want to do is make sure that no president ever, a Republican or a Democrat, can escape criminal liability just because they're reelected. So that legislation is forthcoming.
Okay. Now, you've also said you're not there yet when it comes to impeachment. I just wanted to share a new poll out tonight here at CNN. Among all Americans, 36% think Trump should be impeached. That's a low number, and it is down 7 points from December, 11 points from September. That is a plunge, okay? And it's not just a Republican plunge, although obviously they weren't for it to begin with. Democrats also, huge plunge. Impeachment supporting Democrats went from 80% to 68% just since December. That is huge drop in support for impeachment. Why do you think it happened?
Well, I think the American people also want to see us bring down the costs of their prescription drugs, expand infrastructure investments, and make sure their kids have good schools in their community. We've also already passed
So they see it
checks.
as like you're going to be spending all this time on impeachment, that you're not going to be doing those other things, and they're saying that's the priority.
Yeah.
That's what you say.
We should not lead with impeachment, but we shouldn't look the other way either. And what I believe is that there's three criteria that I have before I would be willing to support impeachment. And I think there's evidence that's concerning, but one, the stakes have to be so high for the conduct that the American people understand why it offends our rule of law and our norms. Two, the evidence has to be strong. It can't just be based on one witness's uncorroborated testimony. And three, I want the public, Republicans and Democrats, to be bought in. We're getting there, and we'll continue to look, but I don't think we should eagerly rush into this. I mean, this is an extraordinary remedy, and I want to give Donald Trump a fairer investigation than he would give anyone else.
All right, Congressman Swalwell, I appreciate your time. Thanks.
My pleasure.
And I want to go now to the former New Jersey Attorney General Ann Milgram. So, and when the president says put the Mueller report out, obviously that goes against a lot of the other things he's been saying and doing in an interview with Mueller that he never did when he said he wanted to. Okay, putting all that aside, what's his bet here? Is it a bet on Bill Barr?
Right. So I think it's a really interesting question that he is potentially betting on. There's one of two things. One, the bet is that he's betting on Bill Barr, the Attorney General, saying, no, don't release it. And this is exactly what he did with speaking with Mueller's team. He said, I'd love to do it, but then but my
Good
lawyers are
cop,
telling
bad
me
cop.
not to. Exactly, and sort of relying on legal representation. The other is a bet and a gamble that he'll be exonerated, or at least not. That there will not be sufficient evidence that the public will be swayed. And so, the one thing I would take issue with a little bit is I actually do think that this report should legally be released by the Department of Justice. There's a lot of precedent in civil rights investigations. I was in the civil rights division at DOJ. Think about the reports, the Ferguson report, the reinvestigations of JFK, the reinvestigation of Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder. And so there are countless examples where those, with the court's permission, where those types of reports have gone out.